Hi guys, so from time to time I receive notifications for right-wing videos for some reason. This is from a right-wing YouTuber who is complaining about a new congestion charge in the UK, in London in particular. And what's interesting about the right-wing is that they ask questions, but they can't actually be bothered to Google the answers. So I'm here to answer some of his questions. So let's hear what he has to say.
So not content with stinging the motorists as hard as they can at every opportunity in London, you know, with pay for parking, and we've got the congestion charge, and then you've got the low emission zone. They're going to extend the ultra low emission zone out further because then they can rob more people of yet more cash, which is...
Okay, maybe I'm being pedantic here, but the idea is saying that they're going to rob people of more cash. Robbing is when you actually take money from people without their consent. Now, people are consciously driving into the center of London. They're consciously doing it, so they're not being robbed. The money isn't being taken without their consent. They're deciding, I'm going to drive into the center of London. You know, it's like if I go to the supermarket and I buy food, are they robbing me? Because I know that that I'll have to pay. I know you can complain about how expensive it is, but using the word robbing is... Maybe I'm just being disingenuous here, but let's continue.
Is the way it seems. Now, spearheading this would be people like Sadiq Khan and the tree-hugging hippie fraternity that believe that...
Who are these people? Once again, the right wing like to complain about people that don't exist. Who are these? I would love to know the names of some of these people. Isn't it interesting how the right wing have a huge problem with Sadiq Khan? I wonder why. I wonder why people on the right have this, you know, vitriol for Sadiq Khan. I can't put my finger on it.
London can work without motors, public transport, which I don't know if...
Sorry, London... Sorry, his point was that they're introducing these new measures because London can operate without motors. Now, for Americans, motors, what he means is cars, okay? But yeah, cars can enter. You actually mentioned that at the beginning of the video. You said electric vehicles. Now, I did a quick Google on this, and it says until 2025, all purely electric cars, vans, and other vehicles are currently congestion charge exempt because they have zero tailpipe emissions. This means that if you purchase a fully electric vehicle, you won't have to pay the London congestion charge. And that's from the 15th of May. So motors, yes, some of them can enter. And as we're moving closer to full adoption of electric vehicles, then yes, they can enter. The problem is not the vehicle in general. The problem is the polluting vehicle. But let's continue.
If you've been on the public transport, the tube system is stuffed most of the time through rush hour, etc. And buses, well, you've now got a space more because of this COVID thing. So how's it all going to work? However, yeah, so they're going to affect, I think it's 350 or 380,000 motorists in London. If your car is over 7 years old, you're stuffed. It's £12.50 a day, even if you drive it a mile up the road. They're going to install thousands more cameras just so that they can pick you up, because it is truly a money-making scheme. Now, here's the kicker. If you've got a classic car under 40 years old, you'll get hit too.
If you have a classic car or under 40 years old, you'll get hit too. How many people have classic cars? So, for example, if I have a 30-year-old Jag, that means I'm going to have to pay this. But most people who have classic cars don't have money problems. Classic cars are money holes. So generally, not everyone. I know lots of people, there are a lot of people who have older vehicles, classic cars, which are technically classic cars, which are not very valuable. But generally, people who have classic cars don't have money problems. So it's not really a problem for them to pay this tax.
And I believe they were saying that older motorhomes will have to pay £100 to drive through.
So what he means, motorhomes as in camper vans. So £100 for camper. Who the hell drives a camper van into the centre of London? Really? Who? Once again, you can complain about the cost. It sounds really expensive. So that's maybe an incentive not to drive a camper van into the centre of London. But maybe, look, I'm not an expert on this. I'm just looking at what information there is available. But it seems strange someone would drive a camper van into London, especially an older one.
£100. Where does this money go to? Exactly.
Why is it impossible for the right wing, especially YouTubers who have thousands of subscribers, they're incapable of using Google? What is the London congestion charge spent on? So it says here, all revenue generated by the congestion charge is reinvested in transport in the capital. Over the last 14 years, the £1.7 billion net revenue has been generated and reinvested in the capital's transport infrastructure. So they spend it on buses, they spend it on infrastructure in general, maybe road development, repairing the roads, marking the roads, the tube, things like this. Now, I know some aspects of public transport is actually privatized, so maybe that money doesn't go there. But generally, it's used to reinvest in public transport. Shouldn't that be what it is? Shouldn't that be what it should be spent on? Like, what do you expect it to be spent on?
Exactly. I mean, what are they doing with this money? So if you've got an older vehicle that's, say, 7 years old, right, a camper van, perhaps, or maybe older than that, and you drive through, so you have to pay the congestion charge, which is £12.50 for a car. I don't know what it is for anything bigger. And you've got to pay this £100 charge. Where does that money go to? I mean, we're giving it back to God to offset our carbon.
No, you're not giving it back to God. You're giving it to the city, and they will invest it in public transportation. That's where the money goes. It's not that difficult to find out.
Footprint, is that how it works? Because the interesting thing to mention here is all of the pollution that we chucked out, carbon dioxide, within the industrial revolution within the UK is still not the same. That's for the complete time of that, right? It's still not the same as an eruption from a volcano.
So, I'm sorry, I shouldn't be laughing so much, but okay, so we shouldn't try to fight pollution because volcanoes. So his response is, we have this problem of pollution, but we shouldn't fight it because volcanoes produce more. A volcano will erupt somewhere and it'll cause more pollution. It's not so much pollution. See, these people, I don't even know why I'm responding to this. A problem living in a city is not just CO2. CO2 is not actually the real problem here. The problem is air pollution. Air pollution in a city kills thousands of people every year. People develop lung problems. And actually, because of COVID, we've seen how many people who live in city centres, normally poorer people who live in the city centres, they're worse off because the level of pollution in the air is affecting them to a greater extent. But if we reduce pollution, we actually save lives. Now, we've tried many different things. We tried to invest in new technologies. Hasn't really worked. People like to have a car. We've tried to invest in more public transport. People, like to have their own vehicle. They don't like to sit on a smelly bus or whatever. When we try to increase taxes for a public transport, people complain. Normally people on the right complain about this. They're like, oh, well, why should we pay? I have my car. I don't care about other people. why should we invest in public transport? So governments or cities have to introduce new measures. Now, I'm not a big fan of these types of measures. I think we should just say tomorrow, from tomorrow, all cars must be converted to electric. Here is the money to do it. We'll invest completely in a new infrastructure for electric cars to be charged. Why, for example, are there hundreds of thousands of petrol stations and none of them actually have a charging point for a car? The government tomorrow could write a law saying every petrol station must have a charging port for electric cars. But they don't do that, and I don't know why. So this idea that we shouldn't do anything because there are volcanoes. We shouldn't care about public health because there are volcanoes. This attitude on the right is we shouldn't try and help people because people die in other ways. What about this or what about that? It's absolutely absurd.
I think somebody went on to say that you could probably put most of the pollution caused by, say, America, Europe, put together over the last 150 years, and you still wouldn't even be a fraction of the way close to the shit that's chucked up into the atmosphere from an erupting volcano.
Volcanoes don't produce pollution. It's not the same thing. We're not talking... People don't live next to volcanoes. There are some, in Vesuvius or whatever, but generally people don't live next to volcanoes. So they're not being affected by that directly. We can do something. We can't stop volcanoes, but we can try to save people's lives who are living in city centres. Why are you so against this?
Interesting to know. But I want to know, where is this money going to get spent? How can they...
I told you already, it's been spent on public transportation.
Actually justify it? Or is it just we found another way of getting some more money? All they do is hit the motorists. I remember when they first came out about this congestion charge, and it was going to be, I think it was £100 to drive a wagon through there that was lower than a certain year. So a lot of the companies were getting their older vehicles and put them on the longer runs, which weren't going into London, rather than sending them on the short trips into London, which had a knock-on effect. They had to have newer vehicles, so they had to spend. And then the older vehicles were going on the longer runs, and because they were doing more mileage, breaking down. But hey, who cares? I want to know what you think about this.
I've told you what I think about this. Do you want to increase the level of pollution in the cities, or do you want to decrease it? I think it would be beneficial for people's lives if we reduce the levels of pollution particularly in cities. We can approach it in different ways. We've tried different methods. Some of them have worked, some of them have not worked. But saying, well, there's no point doing anything because of a volcano is not the approach, is not the solution. I would actually like to hear some of this guy's solutions.
Because this Greta Thunberg attitude towards pollution, and oh, by the way, I was going to mention this is the important part. Any of you in other cities that think, oh, thank God I don't live in London, this is coming to Glasgow, somewhere in Scotland, Glasgow or Edinburgh, one or the other. I'm going to sneeze. When you get old, by the way, you get grey hairs up your nose and they're like that, and they fucking irritate the shit out of you. Anyway, Birmingham, I think there's three other places. Anyway, if this starts working, they'll roll it out in as many cities as they can, because this is a money earner. It's a bit like all of these smart motorways, and
okay, but money earner, and what are they doing? I've told you, they're investing it in public transport. What would you prefer them to invest it in? Or would you prefer them not to do anything and just allow cities to get more and more smogged up?
I've said this before, but I'm going to reiterate it. All these smart motorways that are supposed to be there for our help, why is it they put it down to 60 mile an hour when there's no cars around? Why? Why is it they go 60, 40, 50, 40, 60? Now, they'll tell you that the reason is they're anticipating something up ahead. Or is it to catch out the person who's not quite paying attention? Because, hey, 3 points or 4 points and a nice large fine, what more could you ask for? Because it's not just the fine. And I know you say the person shouldn't be speeding. No, they shouldn't. People do make mistakes every now and again. But however, you've got the fine. Then you've got the extra cost in your insurance.
Okay, but this is talking about something completely unrelated. You're talking about fining people who break the speed limit. This has nothing to do with a congestion charge. I know you're trying to connect the two. Well, they're just after your money in the congestion charge. They're just after your money. Perhaps there is some value in this. But if the money was just being spent on, I don't know, a new villa or something for the mayor, then I'd have a problem with it. But if the money's been reinvested in the city to improve public transport, to improve the roads, to improve safety for pedestrians, to reduce pollution, which improves the health of citizens, then I'm for it. I think we could do it much better. We could set a much better standard. We could have zero pollution in the cities if we really wanted to. The problem is political. It's not technical. It's a political problem. As soon as, for example, the Mayor of London wants to introduce something else, he receives a backlash from right-wing politicians or the right-wing media or businesses. But in the long term, we're going to see this was the right thing to do. Or at least it was one of the best things we could have done. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think, especially if you live in London, if you've been affected by the congestion charge. Do you drive an electric vehicle? What is your opinion on this? I'd really like to know your opinion, because I don't live in London. I'm not affected by it. But I think it would be interesting to hear from people who are actually affected by it. Thanks a lot. I want to say a big thank you to all of my patrons. You ensure that this channel continues to exist. I'm eternally grateful for all of your support. If you join Patreon, you will receive instant access to our Discord server, where we have both audio and video chats. You can chat with me and other patrons, where we discuss important and non-important issues. Becoming a patron per month costs about the same as a large coffee, so why not check it out?